Now that John has gotten your attention, this is going to be a very interesting event. These are two people who are actually involved in daily resistance against the building of the apartheid wall in Bilin. One of them a school teacher, another a farmer from Bilin. And because that's not a day that we're having our class, they have agreed to have a special reception for us. Remember I mentioned that before? So in the evening, probably starting 5 or 5:30, we'll get together with them, be able to ask questions, share strategic insights with them, and so forth. Okay, so we have an interesting question to discuss today, which is whether we should actually be here or not. Get to that in a second. I just wanted to share one announcement with you because it's on the Valentine's Day wavelength, and there I'll just read it to you. This is coming from Colombia. Wives and girlfriends of gang members, Padilla? Padilla. Wives and girlfriends of gang members in Pereira say they will not have sex with them until they vow to give up violence. Okay, that is cruel. Oh, I thought you said cool. Cruel, yeah. Those of you who are familiar with ancient Greek literature, show of hands, please. There's a comedy by Aristophanes based on this very thing. Apparently it worked very well, so it might be one technique we'd want to consider in our nonviolent repertoire. So, but before we go any further, a suggestion has been conveyed to me that as part of the show of support and solidarity for student strikes that are starting to pop up all over the country, really. This is, for as far as the UC system is concerned, it started in Santa Barbara, in the group that was here last time. And there's a small group in Sonoma State College, which is the flagship of the state college system, that's having a camp out on their campus. And we're going to have this rally at noon, which doesn't affect us directly, but someone has suggested to me, 10 of 11? It's at 11. Oh, I see. But still, we are not directly affected by that. But someone has passed on the suggestion to me that we not have class today, or that we have it out on the lawn in solidarity with that event. So I have my own feelings about that, which, as you know, I will share with you very shortly. But I wanted us to think about this strategically, given some of the criteria that we're beginning to build now for a model to understand what is appropriate, what is effective nonviolent action. What are some of the parameters of the situation that we're in right now that might affect our decision whether we go out or stay? I mean, having framed it that way, I want to say I am not going to take attendance today. So that's a very dramatic move, since, as you know, I never take attendance in class anyway. It's not a no pain, no gain situation. But suppose somebody came to you, and I mean, someone just did, namely me, and said, maybe we shouldn't be here today as a show of solidarity for the anti-war protests that are starting up. What are some of the considerations we might take into account to decide what would be the thing we want to do? Roberto.
I personally like the compromise you proposed, showing the class in the lawn. So we're not missing all the information, but at the same time we're showing the support. So I think they're not being physically in here, and the administration couldn't even tell if we're having a class, or it's not just request students off each professor.
Okay. So Roberto said he likes the compromise solution that I inadvertently proposed. There's a couple of things wrong with it. One is it would be a disaster for the webcasting, right? Our technology isn't there yet to do all that with camera, with a battery. And another thing is the last thing that you mentioned, doesn't that kind of render it a little bit vacuous in terms of a protest? If the administration doesn't know that we're protesting by meeting outside on the lawn, what value does it have as a protest? So then the question would become, no, I won't even go there. I just want to hear from you first. Catherine?
I know, I think kind of highly symbolic and actually know how you
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
but like, it seems to me like it would
So Catherine is saying that it seems like it would be a symbolic rather than a concrete move in the sense that we have come to have some suspicions of?
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say more specific, that's what we would given the subject matter.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, this is a course in nonviolence, in case it'd be good to remember that when you're writing your paper. And I am going to hand out a thing about how to write papers in the why don't I just hand it right now? But yeah, to put this in my own framework, I have come to feel that nonviolent actions should always be very clear. And we're going to discuss the borderline nature of a lot of the activities in the Outpour resistance pretty soon. But to shut down a nonviolence class, to punish a university which isn't even paying for the class, which doesn't know that it exists, which wishes that it would go away, as a means of protesting against the war being declared by a policy elite in Washington, I think we've lost clarity by 6 or 8 layers there. Mike? Now that is a very astute suggestion, and you may be aware that this was a critical moment in the anti-Vietnam protests. There was a small group of professors, what do you call a small group of professors, a gaggle of professors, I guess, or whatever they were, at the University of Colorado Boulder, which is, the second or third most liberal campus in the country. And they got tired of shutting down their conflict resolution classes in order to protest the war. And someone came up with the idea at a meeting one day, why don't we have a teach in instead of a teach out? And instead of shutting down what they want us to do, why don't we do what we want to do? Now you can see why this appeals to me immediately, because that's a powerful example of a constructive program, that you do something positive instead of not doing something negative. And when the time comes to do the negative thing, you're in a better position to do that. Ms. Saiki? Right. Yeah. 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 Well, I think all of Seiki's points were relevant. That we're at the beginning of a process, and it may be too big of a jump to shut down classes at this point. It would be different if the class really interfered with the rally and people wanted to go to the rally. And I would love it personally if all of you people went straight to the rally and told them what we discussed here. That's partly what we're about. Let me bring up another issue that may not be as clear to you, but it is to me because of my personal experience. Okay, the Outpour Rebellion that we just saw this film about, that we're going to be talking about either here or on the lawn or in a cafe or something in a little while, it started with students, and this is one thing that I have never tried to conceal, that I think without student protest energy, nothing of value is going to happen in this country or anywhere else. That's where I stand on that. But at the same time, if you stack up the free speech movement, that's where my personal experience comes in. Oh, and incidentally, I wanted to share something very exciting with you on a little personal note. I think I found my picture in the Free Speech Cafe. I was sitting there having a latte, and I put my cup down, and there I was, I think. So I'm going to go in and circle myself, and we can all pay homage. Okay. end distraction, back to the point. Free speech movement, the uprising of the Apor students in Belgrade in 1998, the uprising 8 years earlier of Kosovar Albanian students in Kosovo at the University of Pristina, many other examples that I could mention, started because of a repression at the university. Now, the university is in bed with the war system in various ways, but to shut down the university because of what this policy elite of about 290 people that a friend of mine calls the Global Dominance Group, who is really running the country, because of what that group is doing in Washington to interfere with things at Berkeley, strikes me as inaccurate, just to say the least. And to say a little more, there is this tendency for people to protest and rebel against whoever is closest to them, not against the people causing difficulty, and this can even be manipulated in our disfavor. If you think of the famous October, or February, I guess it was, 2003, when the Gulf War, the present war, started in Iraq, people almost shut down San Francisco. San Francisco is like the most anti-war city in the country, but they happened to live there, so they went out and blocked the traffic and so forth. Now, to put even a little more spin on this, if you will permit me, the perception of the university in the 60s was very different from the perception of the university now, such that shutting down the university in 1964, which we basically accomplished, had a very different social impact than it would have now, unfortunately. I think we have lost the value of universities on many levels, and this is a political level. And just to, again, bring this out with one iconic story, as a classics professor, I'm very much aware of the work of a brilliant philosopher, ancient Greek philosophy person by the name of Bruno Snell, who was a philosopher, he was at Göttingen, I believe, and during World War II, every morning, Bruno Snell would go to his office, he would walk up the steps to his Gothic building with all these ironic columns. People will have gathered waiting for him to do this. Every single morning, he walked up to the door of his building, turned around, and he said to the crowd, "Hitler ist ein Schwein." Now, for those of you who are, Amy, give us a try. Yes, thanks. Sorry, I have to make you use that three-letter word. Yeah, Hitler is a pig. In Germany during World War II. And how did he get away with it? Because he was Bruno Snell. He was the greatest scholar of archaic Greek literature that Germany had. You see, I can tell from the look of incomprehension I'm getting from you that what I'm saying is true. I could go out and say, you don't dare arrest me. I'm a nonviolent scholar. I search for nonviolent future. Nobody would have the vaguest what I'm talking about. It'd be like that joke that they say that there was a communist rally or parade in New York one time, and the police broke it up, and they're beating on this guy. And the guy says, "Hey, don't hit me. I'm an anti-communist." And the police say, "I don't care what kind of communist you are." It'd be sort of like that. So I guess you can tell by now that if I'm kind of inclined toward continuing our class for various reasons, but I'm perfectly happy to follow a consensus process here. If the majority of you feels if we have a consensus that we should walk out, I will do that. If you want to meet on the lawn, if you have a consensus about that, I will do that. But personally, I think we're making our greatest contribution by just staying here and doing our thing. I can see where a time might come where a huge show of force is needed. And again, to put it back in that frame, right now you have a pusillanimous Congress saying we're going to pass a non-binding resolution that we don't like your policy. But we support the troops, don't get us wrong. There's one person in Congress who said, cut off the funding, stop this nonsense about non-binding resolutions and all the rest of it. And that, of course, is Dennis Kucinich. This makes me doubly sorry that my bicycle was stolen because I had a Kucinich sticker on my bicycle. But the Congress will not cut off funding for the war unless there is a grassroots, vigorous, well-aimed, strategically accurate, determined, student-led resistance. I actually believe that's true, and I wouldn't dream of getting in the way of such a process, but as you know, personally, I don't think the time has come yet where we can contribute to that process by not having our class. So how do you people feel? I don't know how to exactly do this. Well, I suppose let's just fall back on the old-fashioned, corny method, have a show of hands. And I won't look at faces, just hands. So I'm not going to hold it against you. How many feel that we should just continue as we were doing anyway? Okay. How many feel that we should do something different, like go out on the lawn? Okay. You weren't here for all these arguments where you said that, so that's perfectly understandable. Oh, I'm sorry, I was supposed to look at who that was. Okay. Does anyone else have any other suggestion? Yeah.
I feel like eventually, like you said, that when the time comes to show as non-violence, to maybe put some emphasis in drafting some kind of plan and how to go about that in the classroom. Maybe
Certainly we could do it in this classroom, and I think we could actually do it through the medium of looking at what the Apor students did and see how we would fold in with that. Yeah. Yeah, we have a mole right here in this class. We have a political science major right here. He can actually get into Barrows Hall and get past the security barricade. So now let's think about doing this. That's very much in line with what I was about to suggest, which is something that I always like to do, which is if there's an event that's basically aiming at the right thing, but which I can't participate in for one reason or another, I usually try to do something else. And at the very least, let's try to just rededicate ourselves to understand how real this is, how important it is, lives are at stake. And if we get this right here, we can find a way to feed the insights and the intelligence that we're gathering into this process. So having said that, this is a perfect segue. Today's class is going to seem fairly well organized by standards of my class, which is not saying much. Amy gave us a presentation on this group that spoke on campus, and I think she was too modest to bring out one point which I want to emphasize, and that is this group of people, these young people, were very angry. You could feel it just walking to the room and seeing pictures of people being tortured plastered all over the wall. So they were very angry. So up to this point, we have no problem with that, right? Because this is the energy that we, again, projecting my own views onto everybody. I guarantee you I'll stop this after the final exam. But we, if we are in this principled nonviolence bag, we're not afraid of anger. We're not afraid of other people's anger, of course, and we're not afraid of our own because we know something to do with it. And in this connection, one of the best expressions of this is something that Martin Luther King said about the anger in the civil rights movement, and you can imagine how extreme that anger was on both sides. He said, we did not express anger and we did not repress it. We let it out under discipline for maximum effect. We let it out under discipline for maximum effect. Okay? So up to this point, the fact that this group is angry is not making us angry. But as we've been discussing, there's two very different directions you can go with that. The low road is where anger deepens into hatred, and the high road is where anger is exalted into rage. And the key difference, thank you, Michael, is whether you take it personally or not. And that again has two faces. I'm in this because it's an offense to me. How dare they? You know, I've seen 1,500 advertisements already this week, and they all told me how important I was. So how does anyone dare be against me? And you are the problem. So it's ad hominem, to use a phrase, a Latin expression meaning you're against the person, ad hominem. So when you depersonalize the anger, it starts climbing up into what we're calling rage or furia, and you could use that to change the world. But if you just let it fester, it can get extreme without getting useful. Okay? So this group was, I think, about here in that process. They're heading down. And I felt very frustrated about it, and I wanted to say something about it, but I had to go off to another lecture. Little did I know that one of our most brilliant students was in the back row, and she, no names please, actually went and talked to these people and had a remarkable response from one of them, which was, if I'm paraphrasing this correctly, Amy, yeah, we are sort of interested in this nonviolent stuff. Tell us more about it. What is it about? And interestingly enough, here's another interesting wrinkle. Of the 3 people who were on the panel, 4 people who were on the panel, the one who showed most interest was the military person. He started out his talk by saying, 17 days ago, I was a Marine in Iraq, and now I'm here being risking arrest, protesting against the war. Remember Gandhi's famous discovery, I can make a nonviolent person, a satyagrahi, out of a violent person. I cannot make a satyagrahi out of a coward. So I think it's quite significant there was the military person who picked up on it, but it's also an example of the value of what we're doing here and why I'm reluctant to shut it down today, because I think this growing reaction, and I'm using that word advisedly, this growing reaction against the war needs direction very badly, and nobody goes around studying this stuff. So this downturn that they were exhibiting showed all the characteristics that we would want them to watch out for. One is it's very ad hominem. I hate those people so much. I mean, do I love those people? No. I mean, if you're going to hate anybody, hate them, but you know that's not going to get us anywhere. Secondly, it was entirely negative. It had like no positive alternative. All they were saying is have a culture of protest, which I think is correct. An individual protest will not get us anywhere. A culture of protest will might, but it won't get us over that hump into constructive programming we can really get somewhere. And I think actually that this sort of thing, if I may say so, it was so 1970s. There were very few students there, and I felt sorry for them in a way, but I think that ultimately, and Gandhi said this, a negative campaign will never get have the kind of appeal that a positive campaign will have. It has to be positive but not naive, not unrealistic, will galvanize energies and give people hope. I almost said Barack Obama, but I mean hope in a way that a negative campaign will not. See, I thought of a couple other things. So it was all about protest and so forth. And I guess if you consider that as one, it was raw anger instead of anger expressed under discipline for maximum effect. It seems to me I had one other characteristic where I said to me, I just know that's wrong, and I know that anyone from PAX 164 would be able to point this out to them, but I can't remember at the moment what it is. Oh, yes, I can. The analysis was entirely political. Period, end of quote. Now, I'm not saying there's no such thing as politics, there's no such thing as a political analysis, but the cause of this horror that's going on in Iraq, again, I totally agreed that it is a horror. The cause of it is capitalism. Get rid of the capitalist system, and you'll get rid of all of these horrors. Actually, I don't think that's true. I think human beings have a spiritual dimension, a political dimension, an outer dimension, a body in most cases. And all of these things have to be taken into account, abarcado, they'll have to be embraced, and they all have to be structured in the right way. So those are the 4 things that we would look to be sharing with these people if we get a chance to carry further with this, and we well might. Okay. All right, so that was a very dramatic film that we saw on Tuesday. Thanks to John, we've got the equipment working correctly. I have several things that I want to make sure that we get covered, but I think I'd like to just turn it over to you and ask you, what did you notice? And perhaps we should start filling in our boxes of categories. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, all of those points are very good. I mean, the fact that they said to the police, look, we're not against you, okay, so it's not ad hominem, we're definitely in the right ballpark, but we also have firmeza permanente, or however you say that in Serbo-Croatian. You can't stop us, we will not allow you to stop us, this must be done. And pointing out to the police that they are as much victims of the system as they are, that's super important. When Gandhi was in London for the farcical roundtable conference in 1931, knowing at once that it was going to be a farce, he decided to use his time by contacting certain elements in Britain, and among others, he asked to visit the Lancashire clothing mills, which is so Gandhi. I think some of you will remember the story that he was touring somewhere in northern India, and his people came to him and said, don't go any further.